Hi and welcome to this video. Today I'm gonna explain why I believe modern games, especially bigger AAA titles but also even smaller games, don't like community servers at all. However, it's still worth noting that this doesn't apply to 100% of the gaming market obviously, but it's clearly visible that in the last years, if not even the last decade, we've seen a very strong upward trend in games without community servers. But before we continue, in short, what is a community server? A community server is mostly a server where people can connect through a server browser. The servers are usually operated by players themselves. For example, you can install the binaries to run the server on your own machine, maybe a Linux server, where you can also add your own mods on it, and other players can connect to your servers. While I'm not that old, but when it comes to gaming, I always prefer slightly older games over newer games. And since I also love to code, I just love the idea of community servers. Personally, I have a lot of fun coding systems and seeing how players interact with them, how we can make them better and so on. Even the best developers cannot replace the interaction from player to player that happens through community servers. However, as I mentioned earlier, in newer games I mostly notice that game servers simply don't exist at all. And in the few cases where they do, they are so restricted and hidden that it makes almost no sense to even try creating something for them. I find that really sad because community servers can provide a ton of variation. That's also the reason why I personally played way less CS2 than I played CS Source, CS 1.6 and so on. In CS2 I can play matchmaking, a very simple version of gun game called Arms Race, deathmatch and a bit of surf, but that's it. I made an entire video about CS2 community servers so you can check it out, but long story short, CS2 definitely falls into the category of in theory they exist, yet they are so hidden and restrictive that it's almost like they don't. Community servers for me are important because they offer variation as a player, and they give you the ability to engage with the game in a whole different level, by making your own project inside the game. This can even help you later on in life if you manage to build such projects successfully. And in the few games that still have big modding communities and active community servers, you can almost always see that the majority of players prefer them over the official servers from the publisher. Why? Because it's just more fun. You can pick the server where you feel most comfortable at and matches your gaming style. Here is an example. You like CS 1.6 and want to play zombie mode? You can. You don't like that particular zombie mode? Just join another server. It's simple as that. It's like entering a store with a huge variety of food versus a store that only offers the same food everywhere. Logically, on average, everyone would pick the first store. That being said, in most games, community servers seems to outperform official servers, or at least take large enough percentage of the player base that it's notable. And this is where the problem comes in. While what I just said might sound great for players, it's not great for the publisher. To answer why, we first have to ask ourselves, how do publishers make money in most modern games? In most modern games, there is a strong preference for making the game free to play, so you can get the largest possible player base and keep all servers active. The way they make money is by offering, through an in-game shop, things like subscriptions, skins and other stuff. And why would you buy such things? Because when you play on official servers, you get the benefit of them. And here you may already see where the core point lies. When people take a free game and play instead on community servers, they not only have no reason to buy anything from the official shop, since they are not on official servers, but they might even spend money with whoever is running the community server. Back in the day, you could actually make money if you had a lot of servers and a player base, by selling ranks and so on, which still happens in games like Minecraft to this day, but back then it was possible in far more games than it is today. So, for each player who chooses and prefers a community server instead of an official server, that's a player the company literally loses. Let's assume there is a game with 200,000 players and 100,000 of them play on community servers. That's almost 50% of the player base who are not monetizable, meaning they can't easily be made to spend money. Even if they split their time between both, because official servers are less important to them. Why would they buy skins when they can get them for free or cheaper on their favorite community server? And that's the problem. The publisher goal is to make money. So from their perspective, it makes no sense to allow community servers at all. Another big reason is data. A lot of data. Game companies, just like almost every other company, love to collect it. With that data they can use AI statistics and other advanced methods to read player behavior and see how they can make players stay in the game longer and how they can make the most money from each player. With analytics they can shape everything perfectly so that the average player spends the most possible money. But with community servers this analytics advantage disappears. Once somebody is on a community server, all the publisher know is that the player connected to it and played for a certain amount of time. That's it, not very helpful. And because community servers are hosted on third-party machines, the publisher can't see what's actually happening on them. Let's take CS2 from Valve as an example. Valve reduced the round count required to win a competitive match from 16 to 13. The reason was that through analytics, Valve saw that matches required only 13 rounds led to shorter games, and people tended to play more matches when they were a bit shorter. With 16 rounds, matches were longer, people get more tired, and they thought twice about starting another game. Now you may ask yourself why I'm mentioning this, because Valve tested this by temporarily introducing two matchmaking options, MR16, 16 rounds to win, and MR13, 13 rounds to win, letting players choose. This was a smart way to gather data about player behavior, and that data showed MR13 led to higher total playtime. The clue on the story, even though many players said they preferred MR16, Valve still went with MR13 because their analytics proved it was better for player retention. This shows clearly that losing analytics, while connected to monetization, is the second biggest issue after money itself. A smaller reason is liability. Publisher may be afraid that if something bad happens on a community server, their game and their brand will get blamed. This is also true to some extent, since it's happening on their game, but in reality, especially among gamers, nobody really cares. Most people understand it's not the publisher's fault if something bad happens on a third-party server. However, companies today are extremely sensitive and try to be as politically correct as possible, so even just the fear is enough for them to not allow community servers. Another point is fragmentation. When the player base splits across too many custom servers and official servers, it can make the official servers look empty even if the game overall is popular. This can also lead to longer search times for official matches. For new players joining Touch matchmaking, this can create the impression of a dead game, which publishers desperately want to avoid. Now, I didn't make this video just to explain why community servers are decreasing and what the reason is, I also want to offer solutions. One solution could be that community servers do exist, are not hidden, and have a clear, easy to find place where a lot of players could choose them, but in a controlled environment. Now, if publishers want to keep some monetization while allowing community servers, they could make a dedicated website with an open library where people can code their mods. This way there is no need to reverse engineer the game, and the publisher can control in this way what's allowed and what's even possible to mod. On top of that, they could make a rule that every server is allowed to sell stuff if they want, but it must go touch a specific platform and the publisher gets, say, a 30% share of each sale. That way players still have active community servers, the publisher makes money, and some players may even be motivated to create bigger projects if there is a financial incentive. Even with this solution, which I do prefer over shutting down community servers entirely, publishers would still likely lose a bit more money per player, compared to if everyone played on official servers. However, this could be balanced out if the player count increases enough thanks to players who prefer custom mods over official servers. For that, we do need real-life examples and data to see how it plays out. I hope you liked the video. If yes, leave a like and a subscribe. See you next time.